Hi guys, my name is Gauri Sajid and my topic is RPC. This video presentation will contain the introduction, RPC model and how RPC is implemented. RPC stands for Remote Procedure Call. RPC allows programs to call procedures located on other machines. In distributed computing, a remote procedure call is when a computer program causes a procedure to execute in a different address space, which is coded as if it were a normal procedure call without the programmer explicitly coding the details for the remote interaction. RPC is a form of inter-process communication in that different processes have different address space. If on the same host machine, they have distinct virtual address spaces, even though the physical address space is the same, while if they are on different hosts, the physical address space is different. When a process on machine A calls a procedure on machine B, the calling process on A is suspended and the execution of the call procedure takes place on B. Information can be transported from the caller to the callee, that is from the client to the server, in the parameters and can come back in the procedure itself. No message passing at all is visible for the programmer. This method is known as remote procedure call, or it is often known as RPC. Now let's see the RPC model. Here the caller will be the client and the callee will be the server. The client will have a calling procedure which is executed locally and it will request a message to the server. Till then its execution is suspended and the server will execute the procedure. It will receive the procedure and start procedure execution, and then it will have the reply message and it will be transferred to the caller, that is the client. The client will resume its execution when it receives the reply message from the server. RPC model is similar to the commonly used procedure call model. The steps are, first of all, the caller places arguments to the procedure. Then the control is then transferred to the server and it will execute the procedure body. After the execution of the procedure body, it will handle of the result to the client, and the client will client procedure will resume its execution after getting the result from the server. Next is implementing RPC mechanism. The implementation of an RPC mechanism is based on the concept of stubs. So the stubs are mainly used for marshalling and unmarshalling the data. The implementation of an RPC mechanism usually involves the following 5 elements: the client stub, RPC runtime, the server stub, and the server. The client is the user process that initiates a remote procedure call. So the client will call the procedure and it will make a perfectly normal local call that invokes a corresponding procedure in the client stub. So the client stub is responsible for carrying out 2 tasks. On receipt of call request from the client will pack a specification of the target procedure and the arguments into a message and then ask the local RPC runtime to send it to the server stub. On receipt of the result procedure execution, it unpacks the result and passes it to the client. The first step is known as marshalling and the second step is known as unmarshalling the data. RPC runtime handles the transmission of messages across the network between the client and server machines. It is responsible for the retransmission, acknowledgement, packet routing, and encryption. Then the server stub, it performs just like the client stub, that is when it receives the message from the RPC runtime of the server machine. It will unpack the data and it will make a perfectly normal call to invoke the appropriate procedure in the server. On receipt of the result of procedure execution from the server stub packs the result into a message and then asks the local RPC runtime to send it to the client stub. That is, here first unmarshalling is done and then marshalling of data is done. The server, on receiving a call request from the server stub, the server executes the appropriate procedure and returns the result of procedure execution to the server stub. The steps can be listed as follows. The client calls the client step. The call is a local procedure call with parameters pushed onto the stack in the normal way. The client step packs the parameters into a message and makes a system call to send the message. Packing the parameters is called marshalling. The client's local operating system sends the message from the client machine to the server machine. The local operating system on the server machine passes the incoming packets to the server stub. The server stub unpacks the parameters from the message. Unpacking the parameters is called unmarshalling. Finally, the server stub calls the server procedure. The reply traces the same steps in the reverse direction, that is unmarshalling and then marshalling. These are the references used for this video presentation. Thank you.
Now this is a more detailed diagram of the remote procedure call. Client call to the procedure. This is the client machine. This is the server machine. Client calls to the procedure. This is the client stub. You will see this is the actual implementation of how a procedure or a function is called and how it is replaced in the stub and how it works. This is a client stub where my procedure is actually stored. This is an add function or an add procedure which was called. So this is how these are the two arguments and the values which needs to be done. So client call to the procedure. This is the stub. Stub builds the message. Now what is the message? The variables which needs to be passed. So this is my client OS. Message is sent across the network. So this is the network of the remote network through which it is passed. Now from here you will see the values are flowing from here, from the client OS to the server OS, and it comes to this, and the server OS hands the message to the server stub. Now here the stub is unpacking my messages. Stub makes a local call to add, and add is implemented over here. This is how my client machine makes a call, remote procedure call to my server machine. Now this is a diagrammatic representation of how the messages are passed. Now there's a client side called the remote procedure. It calls the remote procedure over here and it waits for the result, that after mapping of values, how my server returns the value. The request is passed on to the server. It comes over here, and over here the stubs come into picture where they execute, and the call is like a local procedure call and returns the result, and the reply is sent to the calling function over here, and the actual answer comes over here from my procedure of the server.